let's go back over to the Mint Mobile hotline question of the day, because we're going to take a second one here today. And this one is asking, should the upcoming Avengers movies change their writers? Check it out.
Hey, John. Diego here from Chicago, and I wanted to call in because, I've been watching the show for a long time. You, Rob, Chris always say that, the foundation to any good movie is the story. And I think we all can agree, even the diehard MCU fans, that the writing in Phase 4 has left a lot to be desired. So this brings me to my question. Do you think Feige and the head of the studios at Disney should possibly reconsider who is writing Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars? The writer for Kang Dynasty is Jeff Loveness, who just wrote Quantumania to a lot of criticism, if you will. And Michael Waldron, who wrote Doctor Strange 2 and Loki, is penning Secret Wars. Again, another property that had a lot of criticisms towards their writing. So, yeah, just throwing it out there, do you think they should consider possibly getting some new writers to make those movies a little bit better? Thanks, and bring on the filthy.
All right, thanks a lot for calling that in, man. And you know what? This is actually quite interesting when you think about this, because we have two giant movies coming out, right? Two giant movies coming out in the two new Avengers films, Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. Now, Destin is directing Kang Dynasty, who of course did Shang-Chi, and that movie was freaking awesome. I love that movie so much. So I feel comfortable with the director they've chosen. And, even last night at the event, we were talking about who could be the director for Secret Wars. And there's some thoughts that Ryan Coogler will be the one to direct it. Some thoughts that the Russo brothers might make a return to do that one. A lot of names are still up in there. A lot of good directors who could do that. But should we be a little bit concerned, at least a little bit concerned, about who is writing these films? Because as the viewer just wrote in, I don't know that the writing for the previous work of the writers who are on right now for Secret Wars and Kang Dynasty are, quite frankly, all that great at the moment. So let's look over at who is directing Avengers Kang Dynasty. It's Jeff Loveness. And we can bring that up. You can bring up my screen there.
He's writing it.
He's writing it, not directing. He's writing it. Jeff Loveness. Now, when you look at, let's put Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania aside for a second, which he just wrote, okay? When you go down and look at what he's done, okay, he did 6 episodes of Rick and Morty, all right? He did 7 episodes of Miracle Workers, which I confess I have not seen. He did a short called Stock. He did some sketch writing for the Oscars, some sketch writing for the Emmys. He was a writer on Jimmy Kimmel. That's where he got most of his experience. But that's it. And quite frankly, the writing, and now look, I know there are a bunch of people, awesome, all film is subjective, a bunch of people quite enjoyed Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, and that's great. I, unfortunately, was not one of them. And the writing is definitely one of the reasons why. Now, I hate the notion of the recency bias that a lot of people have. It's like somebody can write 10 great movies, and if the last one they saw them write wasn't good, never let that person near another movie again. It's like, come on. Everybody's got a bad day at the office, right? So when I heard this question about, hey, should we be replacing the writer for Kang Dynasty because they just did Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, my first reaction is say, come on, one bad day at the office. But then when I sat down and started going through Jeff's resume, nothing else jumped out at me that I hate. Not at all. Some good stuff. But I looked at that resume and I went, is this the guy to write an Avengers movie? Just from the pure lack of feature film experience. And then you throw into that Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. I listen, I confess, you know me, I try to be more optimistic about this stuff, but I confess that my thought right now is, yeah, they need to change writers. on Kang Dynasty. Now, look, I'm not saying don't let Jeff Loveness ever. No. He's clearly shown he's got some writing chops. I let him write some other features, maybe some small, not an Avengers movie. Because number one, I don't see the experience there to do it. And number two, the most recent thing we saw of his that was his one big feature film sort of thing, it, as the caller put it, it left for me a little bit to be desired. Okay, well, let's jump over then and look at Avengers Secret Wars. We know the person who's been brought on to do that is Michael Waldron. And by the way, he's supposedly also writing Kevin Feige's Star Wars movie. If that ever happens, don't know. But Michael Waldron, he recently did the Loki TV series, which I am not a huge fan of, to be honest. I mean, I didn't dislike the Loki series, but I wasn't tremendously impressed with it. He did Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness, which I enjoyed, but it's not one of the stronger MCU movies. I enjoyed it, but not one of the stronger ones. I know a few people who quite like the television series Heels, that he wrote like 8 episodes on. And just like Jeff Loveness, he did some episodes of Rick and Morty. But I think he only did like 1 episode of Rick and Morty. So again, take out Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. He has no feature films, only Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And I think the caller again is correct that if you were to boil down a lot of the weaknesses with Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and again, I like the film. I like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, although I had problems with it. Whether you like the movie or dislike the movie, I think the caller is right. I think it boils down to that. I think most people agree that the writing was not the strongest. And Secret Wars is not just another MCU movie. This is supposed to be not an Avengers level threat. It's literally an Avengers movie. And so while I do not want to be one of these guys that's like, don't let that person near anything, or bro, don't let that, not at all. I'm still looking forward to seeing what Mark Waldron can do with other projects. Absolutely. But considering the state the MCU is in right now, which is not, I think everybody will agree, not the strongest state that the MCU has ever been in. They've been stronger. I don't know that going into probably your two most important, obviously your two most important movies since Infinity War and Endgame, with writers that have that little experience, and what feature film experience they do have has not been the strongest. Listen, I trust Kevin Feige. I do. But if it were up to me right now, being on the outside looking in, not knowing all the information, not having heard all the pitches, and not having seen all the outlines, I have to admit that this time I would have to kind of agree that I would feel more comfortable as an MCU fan if we find out in the coming weeks that, you know what, Waldron's been moved off Secret Wars and he's going to work on something else instead. And Loveness has been moved off Kang Dynasty and instead going to help develop another MCU project, whatever. I still want them working, but I would personally feel more comfortable if they weren't doing these two films. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Mint Mobile. If saving more and spending less is one of your top goals for 2023, why are you still paying insane amounts of money every month for your phone bill? Switching to Mint Mobile is the easiest way to save this year. As the first company to sell premium wireless service online only, Mint Mobile lets you order from home and save a ton with phone plans starting at just $15 a month. You guys know I made the switch over to Mint Mobile a while ago. The process couldn't have been easier, and I can't believe that I am spending less than a third of what I was spending on one of the other major carriers before. By going online only and eliminating the traditional costs of retail, Mint Mobile passes the significant savings on to you. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and switch easily in minutes with eSIM. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. Anyway, Rob, I'm not trying to be negative or anything like this, but when we see what we've seen, how do you feel? Should Loveness and Waldron be writing these Avengers movies?
Oh, I'm with you. I mean, I think if I could speculate, and again, I don't know these gentlemen, I know nothing about this, but I would look and say, the thing about Rick and Morty as a show, it does a very good job of dealing with hard to grasp science fiction and scientific concepts. It's a great science fiction show in the context of an animated series. I would imagine that both of them having Rick and Morty in their backgrounds and also working on films like The Probability Storm in Quantumania and concepts in the multiverse, that Kevin Feige, like when he hires somebody like James Gunn, looked at these guys and said, you know what? There aren't a lot of writers in Hollywood that get this. And I'll bet, like when he hired somebody who didn't have a lot of experience, he's like, these dudes get it. He's like, these guys, not only do they work in comedy, they're coming from backgrounds of like writing for The Onion, but I think that Rick and Morty thing, and this is just, again, speculating, Kevin Feige's like, I think they're going to understand both the multiverse and the quantum realm. Because both of those things are very Rick and Morty-esque type things. So we hired them both. And on one hand, Doctor Strange made over $900 million.
Yep, came close to the $1 billion club, made a good amount of money.
In Hollywood, people have to understand that that's the end-all, be-all. $900 million for a Doctor Strange movie. It outgrossed the first Doctor Strange movie. And it's a hit. It's a huge hit. So Waldron writing that movie, good choice. Quantumania, the jury's still out. Is it going to drop like a rock in its second weekend? It did very well. If it keeps going and does Doctor Strange business, Kevin Feige's a genius. If it didn't, he'll have to make a change. I bet Waldron sticks around. The jury's out on Loveness. I mean, it was interesting.
But I got to ask, Kevin Feige and Big Pop Iger give you a call and say, hey, Rob, we're kind of torn right now on whether to keep these two writers or move on to other writers. Break the tie for us. What do you think we should do?
I would say no. I mean, the thing about you wouldn't. I wouldn't let them write your Avengers movies or Kang Dynasty, because if you look at Marcus and McFeely, who wrote, they wrote the Avengers movies and they came out of the Captain America movies. They also wrote things like Chronicles of Narnia, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. They have a pretty big history writing giant films, and writing a giant movie that has an amazing ensemble cast is not an easy task. And these guys work their way up. I believe Marcus and McFeely wrote Winter Soldier, I think. And I mean, they prove themselves. And I think the problem with the multiverse storylines is they're just hard to grasp. They're hard to make because they're hard for the audience to grasp. Whereas, you already ask enough from superheroes from an audience to make them believable. But when you put unbelievable characters in an unbelievable world, it's doubly difficult to get an audience to be engaged because you have to explain all that to them. Like, who knows what a probability storm is until you see one, and I think that it's going to be interesting to see if they stay on it. But right now, Kevin Feige brought him in. Clearly, they work with him well. They work with the studio well. But we'll see what happens with how Quantumania shakes out. But I would imagine Waldron's going to stay.
All right, Chris. I mean, again, you'd never want to take opportunities away from people. You want to see what they can do. But we are talking about the two most important upcoming films that Marvel has in Secret Wars and Kang Dynasty. If the call were made to you and say, Chris, you need to make this decision for us. Do we stick with Waldron and Loveless? Do we, while we've got a lot of time still, do we make a change to the writers? Do we keep one, Lucy? I don't know. What would you recommend to them?
I would say Kevin Feige. I have not seen this movie, so I can't objectively tell you anything.
Right.
So the biggest thing for me, though, and I'm going to stick by what I've said before, is it made so much sense to me that they hired these guys. To y'all's point of, Rick and Morty handling a lot of these same ideas, this made so much sense to me. The Citadel or the Wall and Solar Opposites, these are concepts that are so similar to the Chronopolis, and all of those scientific bits, all the jargon, all the jokes just seemed to me like it fit for Ant-Man. So jury's still out for me because I got to go see this. I've heard from some other people that they've had more fun. I don't know. I got to go check it out. But once I know all that, I'll weigh in.
All right, guys, the question is for you. What do you think about this? Do you think that, considering the kind of lack of feature film experience for both of them and the sample size that we've had to taste so far, do you think, you know what, just follow the course, follow this through, have Loveness and Waldron write these upcoming Avengers movies, or would maybe you pull the trigger and make a change at writer right now? Not saying that these two can't actually continue on and make other great stuff, but maybe not an Avengers thing right now. I don't know. How do you guys feel about it? Whatever your thoughts are, jump down to the comment section below and leave those thoughts there.